Imagine this. You have just 107 days to make history, to seize your moment, to persuade millions, to battle forces within your own ranks, and to carry on your shoulders both hope and heartbreak. What would you do? This was Kamala Harris's reality in 2024. Welcome to BookVerse Audio. I'm your name, and today we journey through 107 days, a candid, raw, and revealing account of a presidential campaign like no other. One setting the stage, July 21st, 2024, a moment that changes everything. We open in the thick of the storm, July 21st, 2024. Joe Biden, your running mate, your partner in a two-term journey, the president you've stood beside, announces he will not seek re-election. That moment, that speech, was supposed to hand you the baton. But Harris writes that in an 11th minute address, her name was mentioned only in the final 2 minutes, a symbolic slight, she suggests. The Atlantic, in that moment, 107 days were all that remained. The clock started ticking. From there, the narrative shifts into a relentless countdown, each day laden with urgency, strategic decisions, interpersonal tension, and political theatre. 107 days doesn't just recount events, it lives them from the inside. Number 2. The weight of expectations and the burden of history. Harris's campaign was unprecedented in many ways. She was the first woman in US history to hold the vice presidency. She stood as a black woman married to a Jewish man. She represented multiple firsts, and with that came both the hope of millions and the fear of impossible expectations. She describes how critics dismissed her as a DEI hire, mocking her accent, diminishing her record. The administration she served often offered little defense. The White House communications team, she contends, prioritized covering for Biden while allowing negative narratives about Harris to proliferate unapologetically. When she delivered speeches or took bold stances, she sensed that the West Wing viewed her not as an asset, but as a threat. The Times of India. In one powerful anecdote, Harris describes her vetted, well-received speech on Gaza in Selma, Alabama. The National Security Council had approved it, yet the White House rebuked her for delivering it too well. Why? Because if she's shown, Biden might seem to dim. The Times of India, this tension between being visible enough to lead, yet quiet enough to not unbalance the administration, becomes a central dramatic thread in Harris's recounting. Number 3. Behind the curtains, strategy, running mate drama, and staff friction. As soon as the campaign began, Harris and her team grappled with the short timeline. Usually, presidential campaigns build momentum over many months or even years. She had 107 days. She had to strategize fast, vet potential running mates immediately, manage staff, craft messaging, all while under national and partisan scrutiny. AP News running mate selection, Shapiro, Buttigieg, Walz, and risk. One of the more dramatic arcs is how she evaluated and ultimately chose her running mate. 3 names loom largest: Josh Shapiro, Pete Buttigieg, and Tim Walz. Joe, a popular governor from a key swing state, many expected him to be Harris's pick. But Harris describes feeling uneasy with his focus on status, room counts, and his insistence on being in every room, every decision. She worried he would not be content being number 2. The Washington Post, Pete Buttigieg, Harris says he was her first choice. A Rhodes Scholar, a skilled communicator, bilingual, admired across the spectrum. But she also felt that pairing a black woman with a gay man was too risky for America in 2024. She writes, "We were already asking a lot of America to accept a black woman married to a Jewish man." Ultimately, she judged that Buttigieg would generate too much pushback and that it was too big a risk. New York Post, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, became the compromise pick. He was steady, less polarizing, though less dynamic, perhaps. Harris discusses her frustrations with the campaign's performance under that ticket. The Washington Post. Throughout the campaign, she also describes friction with her own staff, perceptions of disloyalty, and behind-the-scenes battles for visibility. She regrets not being more forceful in demanding space, but in the compressed timeline and tangled politics, the choices often felt constrained. Chapter 4. The Biden decision, grace or recklessness. One of the most potent sections is Harris's reflection on Biden's decision to run or not in 2024. She writes that the Democratic Party essentially deferred to Joe and Jill Biden to decide whether to seek another term. She questions whether that was grace or recklessness. In hindsight, she labels it the latter. AP News Harris describes her frustration at not more strongly dissuading him and at his late withdrawal disrupting her campaign plans. She acknowledges his experience and judgment, but also suggests that fatigue, age, and the demands of the moment took a toll. She also writes that she felt stifled from openly criticising his performance earlier, constrained by loyalty and the expectations of her vice presidential role. Wikipedia. Her recounting of the tension between personal loyalty and political obligation gives the memoir emotional weight.
Top 5?
Campaign highlights, debates, and messaging battles. As the campaign unfolds, Harris recounts a variety of high-stakes moments: debate prep, messaging decisions, rallies, and media attacks. She describes how internal polling and analytics consistently showed they were ahead in key battleground states, but margins were narrow. She writes of strategizing expectations, preparing for negative spin, and battling the narrative machine. As votes were counted, she and her team likewise recognized they had planned for many contingencies, except perhaps defeat. The Washington Post, one vivid memory: cupcakes ordered with Madam President icing, anticipating a victory party. As outcomes grew uncertain, the campaign staff peeled off those letters to spare embarrassment. Wine bottles remained unopened. The moment signified both hope and heartbreak, expectation and denial. The Washington Post election night is described with emotional candor. Harris says that she and her husband, Doug Emhoff, had not even spoken about that night until she sat down to write the memoir. The shock, the disbelief, the quiet horror. "My God, what will happen to our country?" she writes. The Washington Post, she also reflects on campaign missteps, notably an appearance on The View where she gave an answer she later felt damaged her momentum. She regrets not more clearly differentiating herself from Biden, instead being overly cautious in criticism. The Washington Post. Throughout, she balances policy ambitions on immigration, reproductive rights, border policy, and personal narrative, striving to show both the public candidate and the private woman. 6. Themes, reflections, and lessons. By the final pages, 107 Days becomes more than a campaign chronicle. It becomes an exploration of power, identity, loyalty, and legacy. Visibility versus vulnerability. Harris repeatedly shows how in politics, being seen is risky, yet invisibility inflicts its own wounds. She was often sidelined, undermined, or dismissed, yet when she's shown, the very administration she served sometimes cast her as a liability. Timing and time. The compressed nature of 107 days looms like a countdown clock. She writes about the limits imposed by time, how certain decisions, relationships, and narratives can't heal or shift fast enough. Loyalty and critique. While Harris often defends Biden's intelligence and intentions, she also doesn't shy away from critiquing him and the White House's failures. That tension underscores the difficult path she walks, insider but outsider, loyal but truth-teller. Representation and risk. Her identity was always central. She writes about the multiple asks placed on America: to accept a black woman, to accept her marriage, to accept her competence. That burden shaped decisions, perceived risks, and messaging strategies. Narrative and control. Harris knew from the start that the story of her campaign would be mediated. 107 Days represents her attempt to reclaim her narrative, to tell the version of events she believes is real, raw, and honest. The book ends not with resolution, but with reflection and possibility. Harris does not declare her next run or path. She leaves open questions about legacy, about rebuilding, and about how her story might yet unfold. And that was the story of 107 Days by Kamala Harris. If you enjoy listening to powerful stories like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because here on BookVerse Audio, every book has a voice.